Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all for taking the time to be here today. We are going to be doing a Social Champion Canva for Advanced Users training. We have a couple of minutes before our 1 o'clock start time, so we will give it just a couple of minutes and I'll be right back with you. So bear with me just a moment and we'll wait for everybody to hop on and we'll get started. So hang in there. Thanks so much for being here. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. It looks like we've got a bunch of people on today. Deborah, April, Lori, Ebony, Shauna, Yogi. So thank you, everybody, for being here. I appreciate it. We're going to go ahead and get started. It's 1 o'clock. I know usually I give it a couple minutes to get everybody else online, but we'll go ahead and get started right now. And if you have any questions along the way, as always, please share them in the chat. This is more of an advanced training, so we'll go through an intro in just a moment of how we're going to lay out that training, but suffice it to say that if you have a how-to or a question about a particular method that I'm going through or something that you'd like to see, just mention it in the chat, and if I don't address it with that design, I'll address it in one of the others. So we've got a lot to get through today, so without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll get started. So we're going to be going over the Canva Advanced training today, and I thought the best way for us to do that would be by going through some specific types of projects. So the first project that we're going to go through, which is pretty approachable for most of you, is a review response template. The review response template is the or not review response template, but the review template is what a lot of us are working to share on social media around when a customer has left a positive review of the property. Now, the nice thing about the review template, and this will be unique to a lot of the other items that we'll go through, is that you can just take an existing Canva template and heavily customize it, and that's what we'll do. One of the other items that we'll go through, as many of you are starting to focus more on the promotions of your restaurants or just communicating with your guests effectively. And if any of you are using anything like MailChimp or Constant Contact or Fishbowl, you'll notice that there's a lot of opportunity for you to customize those emails, but there's not as much availability within those templates themselves or within those customization tools themselves for you to really brand it appropriately. And that's where Canva steps in. You can create things like an email header add different visual elements to the email, and we'll go over email elements as well. We'll also talk about an event poster. Again, if you have a change coming to the restaurant, if you have a brunch coming up that you want to be able to promote, if you've got a tasting dinner, while oftentimes our partners will help us create those, we want to make sure that we're able to effectively do that ourselves. We'll also go over rack cards or check stuffers, and this will give us a chance to really dive into the custom dimensions. But that's another area that I feel I get asked quite a bit is how do I create a rack card for this sales event that I'm going to? We have this event coming up in the restaurant, and we want to do something in the check stuffers, so we'll go over that as well. And within each of those, I'm going to do a demonstration of each of them. And then at the very end, we'll go through and just talk about the tools and processes that we talked about. So this, I anticipate that this training will be one that you'll want to come back to repeatedly. So if you have any particular areas of that are of interest to you that you feel like you'll come back to, just let me know or jot down the time, the minute that it happens at, and that way when you come back and visit the YouTube video later, you'll be able to go right back to that section. The other cool thing with this, again, is that the link that we utilized for you to watch this training today is the same link that we'll be using to review the training going forward. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hop over into Canva. The first thing that we're going to go over today is a review template. So I'll show you a couple of examples. We have one here from the Hilton Harrisburg. There's another one in here from the Embassy Suites Oklahoma City. We also have one here from the Radisson Cross Keys. So you'll notice that these are all kind of slightly different sizes. Some of them are Facebook posts, some of them are for social media. For our purposes today, we're going to utilize a Facebook post. So again, the first item that we're going to create is a review template for us to utilize on social media. Now, the nice thing about this review template is you can also use this within an email. As an example, if you wanted to, you could utilize it in an email with your if you're sending it out to your customers. So let's say you're talking about events that you have coming up, and then at the bottom you want to include a highlight of a previous review. So as you all know, of course, when we first get into these templates, there's all of these cool layouts available. Now what we'll do for our purposes right now is we're going to customize those. So we'll be able to take any of these templates and just customize it in such a way that we can use it for guest reviews. So I'm going to see, let's see what we've got in here. I want something that has no photo in the background. I just want something that's got maybe a background and some text with it. So we'll start out with this happy birthday one. It looks like these are all different images. So I'm going to get rid of this little pattern here. So the first thing that I want to do is take a look at the background of this. So this is the first area that we're going to be making an edit to, is the background. So it's a link here on the left-hand side. So I have this nice background here that I can change. Right now it's a solid blue. I can change it to a different color, or I can change it to a different pattern and then update the color if I'd like to. So I've got all these cool little patterns here that I can utilize. And once I've selected the pattern, I can choose a different background for it. So let's say, as an example, I'm going to be working on, trying to think of a property I might want to work on who doesn't have one yet. I'll do the Reichert House because they don't have any templates yet. Now, the Reichert House utilizes pretty consistently. They utilize stripes and keys and things like that at the property level. So I know their colors. Let me see if I have them here offhand or if I have to pull them up. I believe I'll have to pull them up. So we'll go ahead and do that. But for right now, I know their colors are a navy and a red. So I'll start out with this one. If I needed to customize it specifically, let me actually just see if I have that color handy. I don't have it handy. That's okay. I know it's in a file somewhere. But if I needed to change the color specifically, I would just utilize the particular color hex code and just type it in here. So I could change the color. White is all F. So if I wanted it to be all white, I could do that. But again, I'm just going to go with this navy that's here. So that's my first step, is updating the background. Now I want to change the color of this shape. So I'm going to go ahead and just come in here, and this one I'd like to be white, so I have this option here, or I can customize the color code. And of course, hex code, hex is 6, which means there are 6 characters to it. And now I'm going to go ahead and just make this a little bit larger. And then the next thing I'm going to do is center. Now you'll notice if I drag and drop, these little purple lines pop up. And once it's centered on the page, you'll see the purple line come up in the center of the item, the element that I'm moving, both horizontally and vertically. So this is centered right now. This actually right here, so you can see that purple line goes all the way across the page. That's centered on the entire page. And now you can see that purple, vertical purple line. It also goes from top to bottom, so you know that that's centered as well. Okay, so the first thing that I need to change here is the title section. So I need to say, we have these other examples here. So I want to see the heading of the review. So the heading here is a place to stay in Harrisburg. So I'm just going to put this as a placeholder of the heading. And I want to change the font for this one. So I'm going to pull up one of my other ones just to see what the font is. And this is another sneaky one. If you've got other designs and you don't remember the color code that you need to utilize, you can click on any of those elements that have that color, click the color, select the plus button, and this is the color code. So now I have that fun color. And I want my heading to be Play Fair Display, and I'll let my body text be, it's a little farther forward. I'll let my body text be Roboto Condensed. So Play Fair Display and Roboto Condensed. So this is going to be Play Fair Display. And once you've created it, once it's in your heading, you don't have to worry about it being hard to find anymore. It should appear right in the top for you. So I'll make that bold. And I just want to make sure that this is centered as well. And now you can see it's centered on the top and bottom of everything, which is perfect. I want to change this to Roboto Condensed. And I'm also going to change the size because this is just going to be normal text. I'm having a hard time with the phrase verbiage today. There we go. Now, the other element that I want to have in here is the guest's name as well. So I'll make sure that that's included. And I can do that in the center or the bottom, but I'm going to change the text to Play Fair Display again. And I also want the color to be that correct color. So I've copied that color code. I'm going to paste it here. And I'm going to change everything that's gray to that, or that blue to this gray. And I have this other color code that I know I'd like to use. So I'm going to take this red color and add this to my post as well. So I actually want the heading, and the guest name to be that red color. And I want the verbiage in the middle to be a gray color, and I want to use this gray. So I'm going to use that. I'm going to take this color code here, 7C7C81, and I'm going to change this to 7C7C81. And then this background color is going to stay that blue. And this Playfair display looks like the spacing's pretty wide. So I have the option here within any of the text that I have, I can center it or change it to the left or right alignment. For these purposes, it'll be center. I can make it bold or italic. Some of the fonts you'll notice you're not able to change whether it's bold or italic because it's built into the font or the font is not meant to be presented in that way, and that's fine. But you can also change the spacing. So line height would be how much space there is within your, let's say I have 2 lines of text. The first line says review verbiage placeholder. I really enjoyed my stay. And then the second line says everything was wonderful. It would change the distance between those 2 lines of text. And the letter spacing changes the spacing between the letters. So 0 is your base level. So I'm going to change it all to 0 and just make sure that that's the same here. So it's at 180 right now. I'm going to change it to 0. I'll show you examples of when this is helpful to change later on, but very basically this is what I'm going to use for my review response template. Now I want this section to be centered as well. It looks like it was off to the side a little bit, so I want to make sure that it's centered with everything else. And so this looks like it's centered with the top, so I'm going to leave that there. That's fine. And let's see if I can place it in the center of the page as well. So now it's centered within the page as well. I'm going to bring this one down. So this is very basically how I would be able to create a review response template. Now I want to add a couple of extra elements to this in the next couple minutes. So one of the other areas that I want to include is something from an upload. So you may have your hotel's logo that you want to include. So for our purposes, I can include the Reichert House logo. I'm just going to show you what that would look like. If it's clear in the background and I drop it in, I'd be able to place it anywhere I'd want to. I can also crop this particular image, which you'll find can be helpful sometimes to get it the size that you want. If it doesn't fit in an area. So I'm going to make this just a little bit bigger. I'm going to place it down here at the bottom. Actually, I'm going to put it right up here at the top. So it's centered now. You can see I've got that purple crosshatch right in the center there, so you can see that it's centered on the top. I have my Reichert House logo, the heading for my review. I'm going to drop this down so it's a little bit more centered between the 2. So let's pretend that this was the title of the review. Okay, so now I'm going to utilize what you saw earlier, which is the line spacing. So line height here, I can increase the space between them. So I think it's just a little bit more legible if I do something like that. So I'm going to increase the space between those lines. And that's my username. Any questions so far? I see we just had Allison and Amanda get on. Any questions so far on creating a review response template? There's one other little area that I'll include, which is I'm going to add a frame, which allows me to drag and drop a photo into a section. Now you'll see I'm going to do this in a little bit of a different way. So I don't want a square frame. I actually want a little circular frame. I'm going to do one with a white outline on it, and I can also change that outline color. So let's say I'd like to do the red color for my brand. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller, and I'm going to bring it over here to the corner of the review. What I'm going to do with this little frame is I actually have uploads of all of the review response platform logos. Now mine are of course hiding way down here at the bottom because I've done a lot of design since then. But you can get all of the review response logos online. Hopefully they're still here. Yep, and I can drag and drop them in. So let's say I want to have, I can keep a few of these. So I'm just going to copy this page over here on the right-hand side. I'm going to use the copy this page option. I'm going to drop in a few of them. So I've got TripAdvisor reviews. I've got Google Plus reviews. I have Hotels.com reviews. I'm going to make another copy for Travelocity reviews and another copy for Booking.com. And then a final one for Expedia. And now anytime I have a review, I don't have to worry about coming back and finding these logos. All of these are going to be here. It just means that I need to match my review up with the template. So I have this template here. I have a new review that comes in. All I have to do is paste the text for that review right here in the center, change the heading, and change the user, and then I'm good to go. So if this is design number 3 of 7, and I want to utilize design number 3 of 7, when I download my template, what I'm going to do is select whatever type of file I'd like. So I'm going to use PNG. PNG or JPEG, JPG are both visuals. PNG has a little bit more data in it, so it tends to have a better look, but that's either way is fine. So I want to utilize page 3 of 7, so I don't have to download all of them again. I can just download that one. So far we've reviewed background and frames, and we also did some color updating. And we're going to move on to our next design. Any questions so far? I haven't seen any come in. Welcome on, Kelly and Beth Ann. I appreciate you both being here. Pardon me while I have a sip of water. I do have these logos as well. So if anybody would like them, just send me a note and let me know, and I'll go ahead and send them out. So I'm done with this design. All of my changes are saved. So I'm just going to X out of it and go back to my main design page. So the next thing that we're going to be working on is email elements. So primarily the first thing that you see within an email is the header. So there are a number of different templates within Canva that would work effectively for an email header. So I can use, let's say as an example, I could use a web banner, that would be fine. I can use a blog banner, that would be fine. With marketing materials, there's really not anything there that would work too well for me. But there is, within social media and email, there is actually a specific header for email. So I'm going to use this email header 600 by 200. There's a few things that we're going to do within here. So for review templates, we changed some text and some color of the text. We're going to also going to use a template for this email header because it's a standard size, and that's okay. But I want us to look at using some of the other elements within here as well. So let's say I do want to do something that has a nice visual background. So I'm going to go ahead and start out here with this email header. So the interesting thing, I'm actually going to do this side by side so that you can see the difference. So I have this template here that I'm utilizing, but if I wanted to create a similar one or something identical, I absolutely can. So I start out with my layout. I have a layout that's got just some text here, a couple of different types of text, and a photo in the background. If I wanted to duplicate this or create something similar, the first thing that I would do is start from the bottom and work my way up. So here on the bottom, I have an image. So if I use a grid, these grids snap to a size. If I were to just place it, you'll notice that I can just click on it and it automatically makes it to the full size of that background there. So now go ahead and select some custom images. So let's say for our purposes here, I'm doing a piece for the Intercontinental. That looks like the Intercontinental's ballroom. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the crop button because I have an image dropped in there, and it allows me to make some changes to that, that image. So I can go ahead and change how large it appears in the area that it defaults to. So I've selected that. I'm going to do a different one up here on the top. I'll do something with the Glidden House's ballroom, and I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to go ahead and crop it to a different area. They've got that really pretty chandelier up there, and I'd like to include that. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now you'll notice that the color on the photo of the top is a little bit different, and it's because there's something called a filter on this photo. So if I have the photo selected, I can hit filter, and you'll notice that there are some different changes in here. They have a filter called Cali. Now for my purposes, I want this to be normal. I don't want it to have any filter, so I'm just going to select normal. But you'll notice that that then changes the way that my text appears. So I can add a filter if I'd like to. So for this bottom photo, perhaps I want to just kind of darken this picture a little bit and maybe up the contrast. And that's okay for me. But now I want to make some other changes to it as well. So I'm going to add that text in, but this text is kind of floating out in the middle of things. It doesn't really seem to have any it just needs something to kind of anchor it. So I'm going to use another element, which is a shape. And I'm going to do a simple square. Now you'll notice that the square, I can drag it from one design to another. You see it now has that blue outline, and when I drop it in, it appears on that next page. So I can do the same, drop it on the lower page, and then see the blue and it is on the top. So I'm going to make it just a little bit bigger than the text. To the left, and then just a little bit out to the right. And then I'm going to change the color first. So I'd actually like it to be a nice light pink color. So I'm going to choose a pink, but then I'm going to edit that pink. So I just wanted to get kind of a base level. So I'm going to do this nice lavendery kind of pink because it seems kind of wedding-y. Now what I'm going to do is I need it to be behind my text, but it's in front right now. And I also want to make it a little bit more transparent because this is just too harsh for me, and I want to see the ballroom kind of shine through. So the text is now in front, but I still have a really harsh floating box. So I'm going to change my transparency, and I'm going to make it just pretty transparent, literally just enough to be kind of a whisper to help anchor that text there. So you can see now, if I unselect it, I've got this really nice little text over top and the pink in the background. So I have now been able to add a shape and change the order of the shape so that it's behind my text. And I've also changed my transparency. So I've made it more see-through. So then the other step here is within this text, you'll notice that if I select this, it moves together. These are two separate text boxes, as you can see, but they move together. And I want to, that's called a group, and it's helpful because it makes it easier for us when we line things up and to make sure that they stay pretty attached to one another. And I want to leave that. I like that that is grouped together. So I want to duplicate something like that down here in the bottom. So again, I'm going to select a shape, see if there's any other cool shapes I want to work with. I'm going to go with this one. I can rotate the shape using the arrow here. So I'm just going to have it kind of pointing out from the edge. I'd like it to be over on this side here. I can make it smaller and then increase the length to allow space for my text, and I'm going to change the color here as well. So let's say I know, oh, there's a really pretty blue that Watermark uses. So I'm going to use the Watermark's blue, even though it's not the right color for the Intercontinental. I'm going to use it because it's pretty. So you can see I've got this really pretty icy blue color. I want to do the same thing. I want to make it a little bit more transparent so that it really kind of just is enough to let my text shine through. And actually, I think I want to change this to that pretty pink color and make that a little bit more transparent. And then I kind of want to change my linen house to that icy blue. So I think I'll do that. Yep, that works really well. I like that a lot. This is a little bit too lavendery for me now, so I need to warm it up a little bit. Bring it a little bit over here so that it matches that curtain color a little bit more, so it's a little bit more of a blush color. There we go. So it's just a little, just different enough. So now that I've got that little section there, I need to add in some text as well. So I'm going to come over here. I don't need any more of these elements. I'm going to go to text. Now there's a few different types of text here. There are templated sizes that combine text for you. Yes, Terry, I do have the Henry and Tria color hex codes. I will send those to you. Lori, yes, I can include those on the intranet. For those of you who don't have access to the intranet, I will follow up from our training today with an email including the files themselves. Okay, back to what we're talking about. So we're talking about the templated text. So I have these options. I can just kind of drop them in if I want to. Delete if I don't. Drop them in if I want to. Move the text to a different place. And you'll notice that just like the ones on the top, let's say I do really like this, this particular text. I really like this text, but I don't need this, let's say I don't need established 2012. If I want to get rid of it, I can ungroup this selection, pick just the one text box, and then delete it. So now I just have those two left, and let's say I want to regroup them. So I'm going to, from off the page, now this is a little bit tricky, from off the page I'm going to click and hold my mouse down and then drag across the elements that I want to select. You'll notice that this arrow that I have in the background is still selected, so I'm going to press Shift and then click on that. And you'll notice that now the only thing that is selected are those two areas of text that I have. And I'm going to go ahead and group them together again so that now if I select one and move it, they both move. And if I make them bigger, they all get bigger at the same time. So again, that's kind of the benefit to the grouping of text. So let's say I'm making some changes. Maybe I want to make my text white here. I want to change the font. I actually liked that established 2012 font. I think it might have been Lato, but it also might have been Roboto Normal. Now let's see what text that was. It looks like it was Josephine Sands, which I like a lot. So I'm gonna change this to Josephine Sands. Make it bold. And change the color of the font on the bottom. So now you can see that I used, I can go ahead and change this as well. Here's to love. So I now have this one on the top here that has a, I'm using from a template, but I customized it using this box behind and changed the filter on the photo. And then I was able to duplicate that same style of email header, sorry, of template, just using a grid element, laying it in a shape over top, and then selecting one of the nice text examples here and placing them over top. Any questions so far? I don't see any coming in. I'll give it just another minute before we move on. Okay, so if there are no other questions, and I don't see any right now, sorry, I notice I'm chatting as my MPen Daily login, but that's okay. Same person. So I have unsaved changes here, so I'm just gonna, you'll see now the changes are saved, so I'm gonna X out of this. And I'm gonna go back to these nice designs here, and we're going to work on an event poster next. So I'm gonna go ahead and make this bold so you see recommended poster is recommended for me. I just wanna see for sure what my other options are. So nothing within documents, nothing within blogging and ebooks. I have marketing materials, poster, menu, flyer, logo. So posters, you'll notice underneath it shows you the actual size, 18 by 24, 8.5 by 11, 8.5 by 11. I want to do a poster. This is straight up going to be about an event that we have coming up at the property. So I want to do a poster. So I had the option here to do a one of the templates that's here, but I want to do this one from scratch actually. So I'm going to start from the bottom and work my way up like we have before. And the first thing that I'm going to do is select a grid. Now I can just do the single grid as I saw before, but what I'd actually like to do is include a few different photos, let's say of a new hotel. So I have some nice ones here that have 4. I want it to be a little bit more unique than that, so I'm going to choose one that's got a few different photos. And this ratio actually works out pretty well for me. I like that I've got 4 photos. These seem large enough that I've got some space to include some valuable content on there. There really aren't any others that speak to me, so I like this ratio. So the next thing that I'm going to do is go ahead and drop in some photos. So let's say I'm talking about a new hotel that's opening up soon in El Paso. Now I have some nice renderings here of this property in El Paso, and I'm going to go ahead and slide these into place. So the first thing that I want to include or consider including is maybe an exterior shot so that people know what hotel we're talking about. And I'm going to go ahead and crop it so that you can see the whole logo. So I've got this nice image here at the top. I'm going to choose a couple of others. So let's see, I've got a nice room photo. I'm going to do maybe over here of the bed. Let's see. Yeah, I guess I'll do this nice little one. I'm going to increase the size so that the watermark doesn't appear on the bottom. Got this nice bed and the pictures and the couch and the thing, so I'm going to leave it right there. And then I also have a couple of event spaces. So I've got the dome bar. Let's see if that appears. Yep, so that the dome bar allows me, and I can zoom in as well if I want to take a closer look. So the dome bar, I want to get rid of that little watermark on the bottom there as well. So I'm also going to crop this one just a little bit larger. And I want to keep that dome in there. It's really pretty, but I also want to see some more action. So I've got a couple of people in one of these. So I'm going to go ahead and crop it right there. So that's one of my dining spaces, and I've got another I'd like to highlight. We've got a really cool restaurant, but I have another image here of the market kind of cafe bar that's got some people in it. So I'm going to use that one. And again, I'm going to do the same thing I did before, crop the image so that it's right where I actually want it to be. Let's give this another try. It's not letting me increase size for some reason. There we go. So now I'm going to slide it over. I'd like to see the bartender. I've got some of these people here, so I'm going to do that. Perfect. So now I have the main hotel image at the top here, a guest room, and then some of the restaurant spaces as well. Now I've got this whole kind of central area that I can put some text over without it inhibiting any of these smaller elements. So I'm going to go back to my elements section. I don't need the grids anymore, and I'm going to include a shape just like I did before. Now for this one, I want to do something a little bit more shapely and unique. I kind of like this one. It seems like a placard of some kind, and I'm just going to change the color to white. And as I have before, I'm actually just going to make it transparent so that it really just allows my text to kind of have something to anchor itself to, but it's not going to necessarily completely take away from the overall feeling of the piece. So I want it centered, but I want a little bit more from the bottom. So let's see. Okay, so now it's centered. I can still see my couch and the bed and all this cool stuff. So all of that's really, I'm pretty okay with that. I think that's looking pretty all right by me. And I can actually, if you wanted to, you'll notice here that as I do that, as I make the page smaller from the corner, all of the elements, the entire piece gets smaller. So you'll see the little corners get smaller. If I pull it out sideways, you'll notice that those corners still stay small. So let's say, as an example, I have a star. I'll just use this as an example. Oh, it doesn't give me the multi-way. In a lot of cases where you've got a piece that might have something like this where it's a little element, if you don't want that specific element to be so prominent, you can shrink the entire piece and then stretch it out horizontally or vertically so that those little elements are smaller. Okay, so again, I'm just going to make sure this is centered. So it's centered horizontally. Now it's centered vertically. Perfect. And now I'm going to include some text. So we were able to see the grids that I dropped in here in the background. We know hopefully already how to upload images. So I can upload a bunch of images to this piece, and that's just fine. I was able to see this the shape here and make it transparent. I can also change the filters on these photos if I'd like to. So let's say I want to make them more dramatic as an example. And I can do that with all of these. So that bottom one is more dramatic now. I can make this top image more dramatic now. Do this for all of these if I wanted to. I actually don't really like it with dramatic like that, but I do like Cali. It kind of softens the background. So that's what I'm going to use for these ones is Cali. Do the same with this little guy here. And I'll do the same with this bottom left-hand one. So it kind of softens everything. I want to change this white to a more yellowy white. So what I'm going to do is just pull it out a little bit to this yellow section. And you'll see it gives me more of that parchment-y style color, which is perfect. So I'm cool with that. I'm going to make it a little bit more transparent. And then I'm going to go ahead and drop in some text. So I'm going to go back to my text section. I have the option of choosing any of these if I wanted to here. And these are grouped together. These two pieces of words are grouped together. So I can keep them where they are, center them on the page, change the color. So let's say I'll make them, or if I have a brown in here somewhere. So I've got this nice rich brown here. We'll go ahead and change that to a brown. And do the same thing here. And I actually have a cool, it's a really neat red color for El Paso. I don't think I have it handy. Let's see what I've got, because it's a really cool color. Nope. This is the one I want, my style guide. I think I've got my hex codes in here. So I'm going to show you a trick for this as well. If you ever find that you are stuck with your coloring and you're missing the right colors. So let's say as an example, I'm lucky enough to have my hex codes here. I've got 8A241B. 8A241B. Let's say I only have my RGB colors, so red, green, blue code, or CMYK. If you Google, and when I type into my main bar, it automatically Googles it if it's not a URL. So if I Google hex or RGB to hex, then Google will automatically display this cool section here. So I can reverse engineer colors one way or the other. So if I know that my hex code is 8A241B, I can do 8A241B, and it will tell me the associating RGB color. It also gives me any of my hex, HSL, HSV, or CMYK. These are all just different types of color codes. The most common you'll see are, well, actually, oftentimes you'll see CMYK, Pantone, RGB, and hex. But your brand decks will usually have either RGB or CMYK. If they don't have the hex, I'll have one of those. So you can reverse engineer it by searching for RGB to hex in Google, and it will automatically allow you to type in whatever color code you have to utilize. Any questions so far? I'm checking the chat. I'm not seeing any other questions coming in yet. So let's say as an example, I've got, I'm going to do authentic El Paso coming soon. And I am going to do some body text. You'll notice that this is, let's see if I've got some Lori Ipsum I can throw in here. So Lori Ipsum is a generator which allows you to, it's really funny, it's just a placeholder. So I'm going to go ahead and paste it here. I'm going to change where this is located. I'm going to make it a little bit wider so that it lines up with my other text boxes. And this is just going to be a coming soon poster for the hotel. Now I've got it centered. And there we go. So I have a poster. I can also include here, of course, let's see if I've got my Paso del Norte logo, which I should. I do. I have my Paso del Norte logo. I don't think I have the black version, but you'd always want to make sure that you have all the brand logos that you need, whether it be white for a dark background or black for a white background. Obviously, the ideal for this one would be the black one, which I don't think I have right now. Yeah, it doesn't look like I do, but you'd want to have all of them handy for yourself anyway. Okay, any questions on that so far? All right, we've got one more to go before we review all of these. So let's assume I'm all done with my poster. I'm talking about my event that's coming soon. I'll show you another example of a poster that we created for TRIA a few years ago. It should be way down here at the bottom. So I'll show that to you, and then we'll do a straight up, completely custom from custom sizes, nice little custom sized rack card or check presenter for you. So here you'll notice I have a couple of other posters. This is a big poster, very simple. It has the logo for the property, the partner property. You can see that there's a very simple, transparent shape over top just to give us enough to anchor down our text, but pretty prominent. Then there's another one up here, or there should be, of the Tria Taste Savor Share event right here, Taste Savor Stroll. So you can see we did a background, added some icons on there, put a box over top of that with the event information and the associated logos. So pretty simple for those. Now for our purposes, again, I've got some unsaved changes, so I'm going to wait for those changes to save, woof, and then we're going to move back on over here. So for a rack card or check stuffer, the sizes are a little weird, and you'll notice that in here, while we have menu and things like that, we don't have anything for rack card. We don't have anything for check presenter. We've got invitations, programs, tags, all that stuff. So none of these are really working for me. I need to create a custom dimension. There's 3 different ways you can do custom dimensions. You can do it by pixel, millimeter, or inches. For our purposes, if I'm doing it online, let's say I've got a custom header that I need for my wedding wire page, I can create a custom header that way. But for my purposes, I'm going to do it inches because this is for print. Yogi, to create a custom Facebook cover that fits appropriately, use Facebook cover photo or Facebook event cover. The thing to realize with those cover photos is that Facebook, how you see it on your computer is going to be different from how everybody else sees it. For an event or anything like that, if it appears for an event, let's say you have a Facebook event, whatever cover photo you choose for that, you want to make sure that the event information is in the center of the cover, because when it appears in somebody's timeline that you have this event, only the center of that cover photo is going to appear, if that makes sense. So a Facebook event cover or a Facebook cover photo is going to be your best bet for that. The size is correct. It's just a matter of the fact that if somebody's viewing it on their desktop, it's going to appear differently than if they are viewing it on their mobile device. There is some shrinking and expanding with that, so just be mindful of that. You're welcome. Terry, check presenters are a little different depending on the property, so you're going to want to measure that yourself. There's a standard of 3.5 inches wide by however tall, and that depends on if you use the standard Amex ones that they give to you, or Discover, or whatever, that are provided by your credit card processor, or if you're using a custom check presenter. At the Watermark in Baton Rouge, the Gregory presents their checks in a book, an actual book, like not just a random thing that looks like a book. Like an author wrote it, it was published, it was printed on paper, it was bound. That's how they present their checks. So it really depends on the property. I know some of our properties do wooden check presenters, so you're going to want to measure it yourself. But again, first standard is about 3.5 inches wide by however tall your check presenter is. But again, do measure. So I'm going to do 3.5 inches wide, 3.5 wide, and I'm going to do 5.5 inches tall. So then I can go ahead and design. Now you'll notice with this, unfortunately, there are no pre-made layouts. So it automatically gives me these beautiful grids for me to work with. Now, I can use a grid, as you can see here, within this, this image I have here. This is actually a check presenter that we created for Legends. It has a grid in the background, but there's also this text overlay in the top. So I'll kind of recreate that for you so you can see. So if, let's say I would like to use a grid, but the photo's only so tall, which was the case with Legends. I actually used the grid and just shrunk it down a little bit smaller, and then used the background to create that nice little back area there. So if I do this black background, if I go to uploads, I can drag and drop this image there. I'm going to crop it down so that it's the right size. And then you'll see that it's got that nice clean line between the image and the background there. But let's say that I didn't want to do that. Let's say I didn't want that grid at all. I can go ahead and change my background however I'd like to. Again, I'm going to go ahead. Once I've gotten my background, I can change the color that I'd like to use. For this, let's say I'm going to do a waffly sort of thing. So I want to go with a nice, rich, kind of brown color. So I've got this nice little waffle texture going on here. I can choose some other elements. So I've got some icons. These are pretty cool. You can always search as well. So icons are neat. It's all kind of almost computer illustrated. I have straight up illustrations, and it will start off giving you the free ones and working its way from there. I like illustrations a lot too. And I also have, I can do charts or things like that, different textures. I'm going to search for some stuff. So let's see if I've got waffle. Well, these are all paid. I wanted to see if I could find a free version, and I can't. So let's see if I can find something else. Maybe plate. These are also all the paid versions. So let's try this one more time. Let me see what I can find within illustrations. Allows me to search for plate illustrations. It allows me to search for plate photos, and then I can do all of them. So I'm gonna get rid of that. Let's just see what we can find within elements. Let's see icons. I want something for, I'm gonna try and do something for brunch. So let's see what I've got in illustrations and icons around food. So popsicles, beers, the moon. This really cool little pattern here, whatever that is. It's a pretty neat little pattern. Let's see what we've got. All of these look like they might not work for me. Oh, I like this one. It looks kind of like syrup. So we'll go with something like that. I want it a little bit more. Yeah, that's a nice color. All right. Make a little splatter here. I'm going to do a nice box overlay as well, like I have before. I've got a nice fork here. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that in here. And I'm going to do an element, but this time I'm going to do a shape as I have before. I'll do a white one. And then I can also, I want to add a little stripe to it. So I'm going to add a little red stripe to my plate. So now they're nice and together. I'm going to select these two and group them together so that no matter what size I make them, they're going to stay together. Now I'm going to do a nice little heading here. I'm going to change the color because they're all white. So I'm going to change it to black. So I can change all of this stuff if I would like to. I can ungroup them and change the size. I can delete it. I can add my own heading if I'd like to. I'm going to go ahead and reduce my text size here, make this a little bit smaller. Add it up here. And then I'm going to copy this. Cool. So I can change the font however I'd like. I can make this one bolder. I can change it to another font altogether. But that would be my basic little check presenter. So I have that nice little waffle background, my nice little splotch of syrup, my nice little fork over here. I can change all of the branding so that it's appropriate. And this is about my check presenter size. If I wanted to create something different, my background would stay the same unless I delete it. So I'd want to delete it from that one size. Perhaps this time I can go with a photo background. I can find, let's see what free stuff I can find. So I don't see necessarily any free ones in here, but you can go ahead and type in whatever you, or include whatever you want. I'm going to filter this to make it a little bit brighter. And then I would probably also add another text box over this one, or another box altogether over this one, and make it transparent. And change the size. This one stays square, so I'll have to leave it square. I would like to center it. So center it in the middle. There we go. So now it's centered. Then I can add my text however I'd like to. So for this one, I'll do so I can increase the size however I want to. Oops. I'm going to center this one as well. There we go. Now it's centered. So I've got a couple check presenters there. Any questions, comments, thoughts, reflections about that? Okay. So in that case, just as a review or a reminder, what we went through was creating a review template. We looked at using frames, updating the background. We looked at updating colors as well as text changes, so changing the font or changing the color of the text and its location. We looked at grouping and ungrouping that text as well. We looked at email elements, and while we were looking at creating an email header, we changed some more text. We used grids to drop in a photo in the background. We made an item transparent and changed its order so it was behind items instead of in front of items. We also created an event poster where we looked at using grid images. We uploaded files, created filters on our photo, and then again we laid in an element. So we laid in that shape and made that transparent and laid text over top. And then we looked at custom sizes with check stuffer. So again, we did a custom dimension. We updated our background. We grouped text together, and we had an opportunity there to use a photo grid as well to drop in an image. Any other questions, comments, thoughts, or reflections? I'm going to stop sharing my screen and start sharing my face again. Anything else? Any other questions, comments, thoughts, or reflections from today? I haven't seen anything come through in the chat just yet, but I want to make sure that I don't miss out on anything if anybody has any questions. So we went through 4 different main element or 4 different designs today, step by step. We went through a number of different how-tos for each of those. Of course, if you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to reach out and let me know. And I will again show you, I'm going to share my screen one last time before we go for the day, and I will show you as a reminder that there are some great resources on the Canva site. So from the main Canva dashboard, I have this little section here, Learn to Design. It pops out to a bunch of the different Canva tutorials. They have getting started, fonts, color, images, backgrounds, shapes and icons, layouts, branding, advanced tips. There are some great keyboard shortcuts you can utilize, more skills in action, so those actual how to make different things that we talked about, and make different design elements that you might be able to utilize or make different kind of projects. So if you have any questions, of course, please don't hesitate to reach out and let me know. I look forward to having you all on our future trainings as well. And thank you so much for being here today. I really, really appreciate it. Enjoy today. If you have any other questions, like I said, reach out and let me know. Thank you, everybody. Bye.